What I have here is a pristine 1843 Pleyel Petit Patron, 2 meters long, 2 meters 3 centimeters, and it happens to be the model of Pleyel which Chopin is most closely connected, with which he's mostly connected. The piano which he brought to England in 1848 is a Petit Patron, and the last piano he had when he returned to Paris, again in 1848, his last apartment in Place Vendôme, he had the same model, Petit Patron, 1848. And I've worked on both his last piano, which I first thought was the most perfectly preserved original Pleyel, and now I see this. It has the original mechanism, and now I'm putting new strings on, which is entirely correct because they just break. They've had it. They're 200 years old, almost. And it's time to change them. But it's an attractive instrument with a lot of potential. So I'm looking forward to hear it play. Here's string number 1. And here are all the rest. And they come off this thing in an orderly fashion. And this is the style that resembles the original. And the winding goes through, as you will see on the instrument, and it fits there. And it goes here. And the winding itself goes through the agrafe, through this brass thing. And there are big holes drilled in to accept the windings going through, and it's just an old-fashioned thing. And this was made nicely by Heller Bass in Germany. What I'm doing is recovering these Pleyel hammers on a very, very well, the best preserved Pleyel I've ever seen. These are, shall we say, this is an original hammer, and this is a replacement. I'll trim it up. Here's one I've trimmed, and I've replaced the felt with some nice soft stuff. And you can see that the old hammer is just a bit too too much string contact, and it's a bit flat, and it has these grooves, and it doesn't make a nice sound. They can't really. Hammers have to have a pretty good shape, and these are a bit far gone, so we're going to change them. Otherwise, nothing else has been changed on this piano from day one, 1843, except the strings, which I replaced earlier this week. The strings are now a proper replacement. The dampers, unbelievably, are original, but they take a lot of adjustment. And I can show you what I have to do to get one of these things apart. I have to take the old felt off. Here we go. Here are my Magic Modified scissors. And with this, I can get under the felt on the top. And I can sneak in there and then cut it. And then I have to tear it off. And save the felt, because it's very rare to find original Pleyel hammer felt. And it takes this side. And then this. And then I have to remove the remains of the felt here. And it works like this. And you tear it off. And eventually we get down to the leather, which is there. And it's an unusual, the stiffness of the original leather. And it makes me question. I don't doubt the originality, and I don't see that someone has contaminated this leather, but it's quite stiff. It's an interesting concept that you have a quite stiff hammer, the core of the hammer, yeah? And let me get another one, you can see better. There's not much of this leather, not much felt outside the white stuff that's felt. There's not much of it. But it's soft. But what happens is that the forte is always available because the felt is not thick. And what's underneath is certainly going to give you a forte. And I can show you that under the felt, you still, let me get it cleaned up a little bit. Under the felt, you are still seeing string marks. Yes? So if you look at some kind of close-up, you can just see a little dirt, 3 dirty marks, and those are string marks on the top of the hammerhead. Yeah? Maybe you can see. Can you zoom in a little bit? You see? And those string marks were made through the felt onto this leather. So it's just interesting in the way that the impact of the hammer hitting the string can transfer through the soft felt and make an impression on the leather underneath. It's interesting. Okay.
And now I have a thickness closer to my example here. And then I do a little something. I put a file, and I pull it under a file to clean it up a bit. And the long day goes on. I do this on the contact side to help prepare it. Whenever you make felt hammers, you have to file them and sand them to prepare them for their... That's better. So then I have here, and this is pretty weird, but I'm going to show you. This is here, and I clamp this here, and I have this here, and I clamp this screwdriver, which is holding my piece of felt in place. And I have an angle here, and I replicate what Pleyel does. With every piece of felt, he makes a tapered cut on the end. Right? And then somehow I turn it over. And do this end. Get over there. And I get this. I just made this up today. I needed it. So this goes here. Come on, you. Which one is which? Is it getting any easier? There. This goes here. Come on, machine. Then I can tighten that. And the screwdriver is now a spring clamp. And I cut this end. And I just chisel off the other end. And now I have this, and I have a piece of stuff, and it has the Pleyel thing. He cuts 25% of the length. At each end is a taper, a long taper. And then I find the next hammer, the one I cleaned up, and I put it there, and it's going to go, and I need to make it a little bit shorter, and I go, and yes, and now it will fit better. All right, now I put it in here in my thing. I invented this thing which will clamp the felt on and provide the compression which is necessary for every felt hammer. You have to compress the felt in place. And if you can film kind of down, you see that it's mashing this felt, yeah? And it's being mashed into place, and it's extending. It got a little bit longer because it's being squashed on top. And that way I can take it off. And now I put my finger there, wrong hand. I put my finger there, and as Pleyel did, he glues the hammer, but the very top of the hammerhead doesn't get glue. And because my finger is stuck there, the glue will not reach it. So it's nice to do this work, and you imagine what the historical builder does when you see the results. And he has to have kind of held it this way in order to glue everything without any glue being just at the top of the hammer. It's nice. So then I get animal glue everywhere. And I've already compressed the material so I don't have to put it back in this press. It is already compressed, the material, and I can get, what do I want to do? I have this pair of pliers, and I grab it, I pinch it here with a pair of pliers, and squeeze like crazy, and it will pull the felt, kind of pull it downhill, and then I put on a spring clamp, somewhat past the shoulder, going a bit downhill, so it's also going to be pulling in that direction. And, oh, just a second. Here, 2 little clamps. One, oops, one, 2. All right, and now it's all clamped up, right? And I put it over here in my heated foil. This is a heating foil, and I keep it at 50 centigrade. And it helps to make sure that the glue is activated. This is animal glue. If it gets to 40 centigrade, it becomes a gel and can no longer adhere. You have to make it liquid, and then it does its thing. So that's the whole job. And after a while, after a few minutes, you know, I make the next hammer and I put it on this thing. And maybe after an hour, I can trim it like I'm doing here, these things. Did I trim one? Maybe I will. Maybe I did show, I'll show you. So this thing, I clamp it in place for trimming, as I must do. And this is a terribly sharp plane blade. And I put it there, and I get these gloves on. You don't want to ask why I decided I need gloves for this work. I did one of these Pleyels in February in New York State, Cornell University. And it was just brutal what I did to my fingers. Because you're constantly working near this terribly hard, sharp blade with a lot of force. So you need to slide it along with a lot of down pressure. Yeah. And then it comes clean on that side. I need to trim it some more, but we have a good start. Yes. A little more. And then I get this chisel and I clean it up a little further. Yeah. So I can see what I'm doing there. And it's interesting, I saw on one of these hammers the original chisel marks from Pleyel on a hammerhead. So you can see the procedure is probably the same. So I get a little more work here. Yeah. And then of course I trim in here. There. And there. That's about it. So that's another hammer. And I put it there, and I grab another. The long day wears on. I'm putting this piano back together, and somewhere I have number 14, and this is a Pleyel thing, and I want to test it. That's good. It has to have a certain friction, because you don't want flyaway hammers. That's good. And let's see how that's doing. And 45 is, it's just too loose. So I'll try the same kind of half thickness of material and see how that behaves. And it's got to be like this. And it goes in here, and I get nice. And I trim it. And I trim it. And that's just nice. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to voice this piano. Now look, this felt is quite, let me just get my, I just teased it up a little bit with the sandpaper, and now I can just make it start moving, and I can peel off a layer just like that, and it goes off all the way around. And if this were not very high quality felt from the very kind people at Wurz and Filzfabrik in Germany, they were very kind to make an analysis of the original felt from this piano and determined the very low density that it is, and to reproduce it. They made it for me, especially, and I'm very happy about that. So here I can just, I just pull that back, and then I get finger, 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 and around, and then remove it from that side. So that's that one. So these two notes, F sharp and G1, let's see what they're like. They're fine. F is a little dull, and E natural is too hard. I want to do something later.